So recently, somebody gave me a picture of the person who had died when I was younger, and I was kind of staring at it and feeling a bit like I couldn't really remember. Like if they walked into a room, I felt like I just couldn't remember how they would feel, if they came into the room with their energy. Like I just couldn't remember. And I was feeling really sad about that, and this was kind of like in the midst of like a lot of grief. And then I was just out walking one day, and I just felt like it only happened for a few seconds, but like their energy just came into my energy. And it was like, just for a split second, I felt like, oh, I remember what their energy was. It was like really joyful and light and kind of bubbly and sweet, and yeah, and it was like, oh, I remember now. I remember what they feel like and kind of who they are, because it's been so long since they died. And then a few days later, I remembered that I had previously had this thought that had come into my mind that said, you're just like me. You're just like me. And it had the thought had the flavor of her. And it was only in this experience of the energy coming in to me that really I remembered this other occasion where something was being heard in my mind, and then there was this kind of knowing that had felt like them, And then really I started thinking about telepathy and clairaudience, because I'd had some experiences before when I had met a non-dual teacher in London. So when I first met him, first of all, I could really feel what his energy was, and I described it to him, and so I could feel his energy. That was before I knew that he was awakened, because he'd just been somebody in the audience that was watching somebody else do a non-dual talk, if that makes sense. But it turns out that he was actually awakened too. And then obviously we became friends for a while, and I told him this story about when I first met him, how I could feel his energy, and that it was so unlike anybody's energy I'd ever felt before. And I described it, and he said, what was it like? And I described it. He said, oh, that's really, really well described. But also, what I didn't also tell him at the time, because I don't think he really believed in like telepathy and stuff like that, was that when we first had a conversation, it was like I could connect to all of his thoughts. So it was like he had a thought and then he'd say it, like, and it was like, so it was like I was catching what he was about to say every time. So there were things like this that I'd kind of taken note of, and I was like, oh, so maybe telepathy is a thing. But then more recently, this thing came up on my feed about animal communication, and it was this really intriguing lady talking about what that dogs were saying to her. And some of the things that they were saying were kind of unbelievable. And to be honest with you, I don't follow any dogs or anything on my Instagram, so the fact that this came up on my feed was kind of unusual, because usually you just get fed the same thing, don't you, as what you're following. So I don't know if I've said this on my channel before, but I also walk dogs. And so I was going to see this dog, and it was the first time that I was going to see this dog. It wasn't one of my regulars, so I had no emotional kind of attachment to this dog. And I was walking there, I just thought, you know what, maybe I'm just gonna try and see if I can talk to a dog. And I thought, yeah, this just isn't gonna happen. This just isn't. And in my mind, my brain was just going, this isn't gonna happen. This is never gonna happen. Anyway, I arrived and I was sitting down with the dog, and I basically just said, look, I don't know if I can talk to you, but please, can you just say something so that I know that this is a thing, this maybe could work. And then in my mind, I just heard love, 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 over and over again. And at the time I was like stroking him under the chin. And so I was like, what? Like, what did I just hear? And then I tried a few other things, because I did ask him, like, how did he feel in his body? Because I thought maybe, you know, like maybe if he's got any health issues or anything that I might need to know about. And he said leg. So I kind of got leg, but then I was trying to get him to show me which leg it was. And that just kind of got all lost in translation, and quite a few things after that got lost in translation. But then later on, he said, I was kind of trying to talk to him more. I think it was in a kind of annoying way, because I was so kind of like, oh my God, this is maybe something here. That I suddenly just heard, I don't want this. And I was like, oh, what does he mean he doesn't want this? So my mind was kind of turning of all the things that maybe he might mean. And then I was like, oh, do you mean you don't want to talk? And he said, yes. And I said, oh, is it because he looked really tired and a bit sleepy. I was like, is it because you're really tired? And he said, yes. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I'm like, so sorry if I'm annoying you with all me trying to talk to you. It's just that I've never spoken to a dog before. And he was like, oh, cool. And then he went, yippee. And I said, I'll leave you alone now and to sleep. I said, we can talk another time. I said, but just want to let you know that you've literally just made my life. This is like my childhood fantasy come true. If I'd known I could talk to the dogs, I'm not sure I'd have even bothered with the people, to be honest with you. But anyway, I just wanted to share that, because there's so many things that can start opening up in this Kundalini journey. And even though I think maybe there was this element before I even started Kundalini, that was there. And when I look back to my childhood, there was this occasion where I had a dream about one of my friends, and the next day I went in, and I'd never been to a house before, but I drew the whole floor plan of her room, you know, like the way the door opened, like which way the door opened, where the window was, the rug, the bed, the chest of drawers, the wardrobe, like it was detailed. And she basically just said, you got it all right. And I was like, what? But because I didn't really, I don't think I really believed in this stuff. I mean, I was a very open-minded person, but I think like a lot of people, we get conditioned by what society says is true and not true, and all of those things. So yeah, I suppose I just thought I would just say this because it can open up more. Like now, obviously in the sessions I've spoken about this in other videos where I've started to see things, and for a while I've been thinking this is maybe just the way the mind interprets things, but actually now I'm thinking, well, this could be the opening up of more clairvoyant stuff, you know, because it is images in the mind, visions, all this kind of stuff. There's obviously now this telepathic clairaudience element that's coming into fruition. And I do feel like with the dogs, I'm having to practice it. Like it's not, for me, it's not necessarily something that is just suddenly I can do and I'm brilliant at, if that makes sense. And I'm noticing that the mind has to be kind of quiet and still, and like if they say something and it affects your mind in a way, like, oh, I can't believe that, the mind then might kind of be like, oh no, this is rubbish, da 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 da, what are they saying, this probably doesn't work, da 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 da. So, and then when the mind starts kind of then the connection gets lost, you know, and then there's like, you know, it's hard to then connect again. So I've been meeting up, you know, as I've been walking other dogs, meeting other dogs, I'm kind of slowly practicing, and I'm finding it very easy with one particular dog, and then more challenging with this other dog, which is interesting. So there's one dog who's like a greyhound. He's very calm. He's very kind of like a mature kind of character. And then there's this other dog who's like high energy, young, fun-loving type of dog. You know, I think it's like a Labrador and Border Collie cross. And so I'm finding it very hard with the high energy, but very easy with the calm. So I'm wondering, like, what is maybe it's something to do with this high energy dog that is kind of like, you know, making me less calm and less kind of centered in myself, which is making maybe the connection harder. But anyway, if anybody's out there and is wondering, I might now be going crazy because I'm having thoughts in my mind. It's probably just telepathy or clairaudience. So yeah, if anybody else has any experiences about this and wants to let me know in the comments, then feel free.